applauds, he accepts the applause. The Stalinist leader joins the applause, always. Let's drop this. Okay, so how? Will the people speak, or are we in higher level Stalinist democracy where you ask questions on behalf of the people because you know better than the people what the people want? How it is done here? Seriously, sorry. How?
Well, there are
Can somebody?
Yeah, so,
I'm myopic. I have what in my country we call chicken's blindness. That I don't see in half darkness. So if you can.
yeah, I'll do this. Okay, there in about the third, fourth row. Yeah.
I'm going to be a bit cheeky and ask two questions. The first one's a bit belligerent. The next one kind of is perhaps naive and shows the fact I haven't read.
So you're giving me, like in doctor's jokes, first bad news, then good news. Okay.
Probably the wrong. Like I should do a shit sandwich and do the good one first.
Yeah. Okay.
So the more belligerent one is, I really enjoyed what you had to say, and it was clear. From what I've read from online articles, your written work is what some might say is sort of willfully obscure and quite flowery. Is there a particular reason why you write in a particular style that could, some might say is accessible to only people that have sort of been indoctrinated in theory and so on? So that's the first question. Is there a particular written style? The second question is, in your last comment and in that Guardian article, you were, from what I could understand, not having read your books, very critical of people that try to reform within the existing religion, ideologies.
Yeah.
I work for human rights NGOs, so that obviously cut really hard and you'll probably go home and cry in a bit. But then most of what you said today was actually critical of full sort of moronic, pseudo-radical position. And people like kind of flies flinging themselves against, so sort of trying to get out of that. So are you against both, or one, or have I just misunderstood? Because on the one hand, you're criticizing people that are reformers within existing systems, like they buy a fair trade organic apple, and that's and you sort of slightly patronizing kind of.
No, let me give you. So
On the other hand,
I understand.
critical of the people that, albeit there are obviously more idiotic forms of radical. So is it both?
No, let me give you the first question. It's so strange because on the other hand, I simply don't get it. Many people accuse me of being a cheap popularizer and writing in too popular a way. So I get a little bit perplexed here. The only thing I can tell you is that I am, at least subjectively, obsessed with stating it clearly, and the idiot I am addressing through my jokes and maybe simplifications are not you, it's me, myself. I'm obsessed with that. If you cannot state it clearly, you, not the others, you don't really understand it. Maybe it doesn't work. That's my subjective position, but maybe more important, the second point. I know, there are people who, as they say in how is it called? In Harry Potter, how they call Voldemort, the one whose name
shall not be named.
Yeah, okay. There is a guy who writes books about fate of the fateless and so on, who shall not be named. No. And this was his reproach to me, that I dismiss pragmatic, modest measures. I'm just a cowardly pacifist who waits fascinated by some big violence and so on and so on. No, I'm very pragmatic here. Listen, first, if from nothing else, from my own political past, I'm well aware of how a well-chosen, particular, modest demand can be often much more subversive in its effect than big radical demand. For example, when real socialist regime in ex-Yugoslavia was disintegrating. If you said Yugoslav communism is even worse than Stalinism, it's more hypocritical, and communism is in the totalitarian line, there is a necessary way you start where you want. From Marx, from Hegel, from Rousseau, from Plato, from Plato to NATO, to Gulag, and so on. That's the truth. I can guarantee you, at least from late 70s, early 90s, no problem. This radical denial. But if you said, why, in order to make socialist democracy more efficient, Can't we change that law a little bit? There was the real danger, you know. So I'm here, I think that in proper, authentic politics, I claim that this distinction between radical demands and pragmatism becomes irrelevant. Let me give an example for which I will probably again be called a compromiser, of a good battle. I'm well aware that Obama compromised everything, that the result of his healthcare reform, he made too many compromises, is zero. But I still think that the topic, healthcare reform, was very well chosen. Why? Because on the one hand, it was obviously something which disturbed the very core of American ideology. American denial of the fact known to any Hegelian and so on that actual freedom of choice needs a very complex social network as its background to be actual. Okay, but so the obvious proof of this is that now it's even brought, I think, to, how is it called, sorry, to the Supreme Court, no? So obviously it's a traumatic point. But at the same time, nobody can accuse Obama of, you want some total revolution and so on. He simply proposed something which obviously can be done. You have it in Canada, you have it still in some European, at least Scandinavian and so on countries. So you see, these fights, we should select the targets and fight them, I think. Where, again, it's not in the bad sense utopia, like a free car and holiday and big apartment to everyone or whatever, but something very realistic which can be done, but at the same thing which disturbs the implicit presuppositions of economy. So my idea, because once Peter Holworth accused me that I oscillate between three options. Sometimes I say, oh, let's do a big violent act. Sometimes I say, Bartleby, let's do nothing. Sometimes I say, let's do small things. When it's true, but I don't see a problem. Sorry. The wisdom of politics is precisely to know when there is real possibility that whatever you say, it will be in what my friend Robert Fowler called, following Box, the clinching tactics, Let's not forget that the intelligent bourgeois ideology wants dialogue, like typically, remember Clinton's reaction to Wall Street. Wonderful, young people are proposing, let's get together, let's see what we can do with this. At that point, it's better to say no thanks. Like, sometimes the proper thing is not to do. Silence, inactivity can be more ominous. Sometimes war, revolution. Obviously, you have to do the great thing, and sometimes we have to do small things. Why a choice here? I think it's a pseudo-ideological problem when it's for me the same nonsense as to if you tell me yesterday you were eating spaghetti bolognese and the day before you were eating a pizza. Inconsistency. No. That would be... So again, I admire you. I even defend NGOs because some radical leftists, pseudo, I claim radical, like to a priori dismiss you as, you are objectively in the service of liberal imperialism and so on. No, not necessarily. I mean...
Okay, one more question, I think, right at the back there. I just think
you articulate basically you've got a trichotomy. You're saying you're either a capitalist realist, you're a Labour-based socialist like a Trotskyist, Marxist, Leninist, whatever, or you read Tony Negri. And I think your constant allusions to Tony Negri, perhaps for me anyway, portray an ignorance of the Italian Marxist tradition.
Is this?
The Italian Marxist tradition.
Yeah.
Since Mario Tronti. The look about subjectivities within post-Fordism, it's just saying nobody has the answers. I agree with you. Right now, after 2008, we're in a situation like post-1848. We deal with new subjectivities, new historical phenomena. Nobody anticipated this coming, and people are being found out very quickly. Like, I agree, when you said that I clapped, I agree with you wholeheartedly. But there are people out there who have kind of thought about these subjectivities to a great extent, these realities and so on. Paolo Virno,
I know.
Terranova, Hans-Jürgen Krahl in Germany. And my worry is, because you're such a prolific writer, that you don't read these people as much as you perhaps could. And I don't mean that
It may be a surprise to you that I even met Hans-Jürgen Krahl. I'm old enough before he died and so on. I mean, we appreciated greatly. He was part of what we called the reading capital school. Hegel's logic capital, there was